Hello? Hello?
What the earphones?
Hi, I can hear you. You can start.
Oh, good afternoon. Okay, right. Good afternoon. My name is Amam Towodzwa, and I'm taking you for information technology today. And we are doing a theory lesson based on emails on the electronic communication section. So today it's email as a form of electronic communication. And our objectives, we have about 4 objectives today. Number 1, you should be able to identify the different components of an email address. Number 2, you should be able to understand the difference between internet service provider-based email and web-based email. Number 3, you should be able to identify the different parts of an email document. And then lastly, you should be able to understand how to use email, that is the best practices, what is good and what is bad. And we call those netiquettes. Right, just to recap what we discussed last week, during our last lesson, we were looking at the various forms or various tools or applications that are used in electronic communications. And one of them was email, short for electronic mail. And then we said this one allows users to send and receive messages and documents electronically over the internet. Right, if you have any questions, you are free to just post, then I will look. And then I'm sure the sound, I see there is a message there that please unmute yourself, just to confirm if you can hear me clearly. Right, then we discussed on the different ways of using emails, right? Number 1, we said you can use it for sending out marketing communication to potential clients. This is what various organizations do. And then number 2, communicating within and or between businesses. So it's a way that is used these days for communication between businesses or even within the one organization, right? Then thirdly, sending messages to many different people simultaneously. That's one of the advantages of email. You just have one email and then you can send it to various recipients. Right, so what really is an email address, right? This is a unique identifier of who owns an email account. Unique means it has to be means it doesn't have to have any duplicate. So the moment you create an email address, be it web-based, be it one that is SP-based, there is only one person who is going to have that address. So it's unique. That's why sometimes if you are creating, maybe we can say Gmail account, if you put a name, you will see it says not available. And then the email clients, like the websites, they can offer you variations of how you can define an email address that is not on the system. So it has to be a unique address, right? So it's composed of 2 parts, which are separated by the @ symbol. There is the local part, which is the username, which is used by the receiving mail server to determine where the email must go. Then the second part, which is the domain part. So we are going to divide this like the domain part, and then we look at the different parts that it's composed of. And then if you do not understand anything, you are free, as I'm presenting, to type in your question, and then we'll look at it. Right. We are taking an example. If you go to the Africa Gigs, Teen Gigs website, you will see this one. For any information, you use this email address, right? So there are parts A up to E. So we'll start with part A. This is the username. It can consist of a combination. Now, these are the rules. It can consist of a combination of letters, A, B, C, up to Z, and numbers. Also other types of characters such as the exclamation mark and percentage and all these etc. They can also be included, provided that these characters do not form the first and last characters of the username. So when you are coming up with a username, you can put the first letter being letter of the alphabet and the last also being letters of the alphabet, but anything in between, you can also include these symbols, right? Then we have the @ symbol, which is a separator, simply separating between the two parts of the email, which is the local part and the domain part, right? On the domain part, we have the domain name, which could be the name of the organization. So if, for instance, we are dealing with the Department of Basic Education, you will see you have DBE as the domain name for the email. If we are dealing with Gmail, you will see there is Gmail as the domain name. So it depends the domain name. If you are dealing with, like for instance, let's take universities, Stellenbosch, you will see it's SUN, and then UCT or UNISA. These are domain names and they represent the organization, right? Then we have the domain extension, which shows the type of organization, And then lastly, you have .za, which shows the location, which in this case is South Africa. Right, we are going to look at some of the common domain extensions and also the locations. Once we are done with explaining the difference between ISP and web-based email accounts. Right, in short, what we have, ISP, it's short for Internet Service Provider. And then the advantages of this one being your email account in terms of support, it's done by the ISP. For instance, most of us, we use, and also in your case, you may use mobile network providers. So for instance, if you have an email like Telkom, they do all the support. If there is a problem with your email, you simply call them or you email them, and also they provide chat facilities, and then they will be able to sort it out for you. Right, disadvantages, number one, mostly it's paid up. And number two, if you have the wrong incoming or outgoing password, you will not be able to receive or send emails. So you need to remember the email addresses, email passwords, and also as well as the username correctly. And then ISPs charge for their services. So whatever you go through the ISP, they are charging you, right? Then should you move or change your ISP, for instance, you are moving from Telkom to
Hi everyone. It seems that we've got connectivity issues. We are trying to resolve it as soon as possible.
Probably there is. Okay. Okay, all right, it's fine. Okay, okay. All right, sure there is maybe a technical problem. Just to confirm with a one, if you can hear me, class, just confirm with a one. Okay, perfect. I think there is some technical problems or it's the network. Right, so we are just looking at the differences between the two types of email, that is ISP based and email, web-based email. So ISP, this is now the case where your service provider provides you with an email address. Examples is Telcom and then MWeb, right? So they create the email for you and you have to pay to use it. And one of the disadvantages is they limit you on the amount of storage that you can use, which means it affects the files that you can attach, right? And the other disadvantage is if you change from, let's say, for instance, from Telcom to MWeb, then you have to change the email address. And then you will be forced to communicate, if you are a business, to your clients that you are now using a new address. Right, the different types of organizations that we can have. We have a .com. You can just send in through the chat what you understand what it is for, right? Type of organization, .com. One word, it could be, for example, .com, it's commercial. And then what about .net? If you have any idea, just post it as we go on. .net, there is .biz, .edu, and then .gov, .org, .ac. All these are examples of types of organizations, right? For .net, it's for business as well. For business, as well as .biz. Then .ed, it's for educational purposes, websites. .net, it's for business networks, right? Right, and then .gov, it's a governmental organization, right? And then .org, it's an organization, NGO. Then lastly, there you have exactly education. And then we have AC, which is for an academic, short for academic institution. So when you get to grade 12 and you are applying for your university, you will see most of the universities, their email addresses or their websites, their domains, they will have .ac and then .za if it's for South Africa. So we look at the geographical abbreviations for country domains. Number one, South Africa is .za. .uk, you can just type in what you understand, what it stands for. .sa, .au, .fr, .nz, and then .us. You can just comment there how you are United Kingdom, that's perfect, correct. And then what do we have? SA. Okay, SA, it's Saudi Arabia. What about AU? Yeah, Saudi Arabia, correct? That's correct, you are correct, Ontatile, you are correct. And then Australia, perfect. That's it. What else? .fr. France, that's correct. And then NZ. NZ. Let's see. New Zealand, you got it. And then the last one, this one must be common. The only thing that is not there is A. US is for United States. Perfect. So these are some of the common domains. You can have an email address that simply has a .com, like gmail.com, right? And then you can have email addresses also. For instance, African gigs Africa Teen Gigs can have an email address such as .com or .ac.za, right? So it depends on what the geographical and also the type of organization that you have requires, right? Then we look at the web-based email account. Remember, we looked at the ISP-based. Now, the web-based, the advantage being that they do not charge for the services. So if you have a Gmail account, you are not charged for the services. Whatever you put there, in fact, they even give you about 5 gig when you open the account, free. And then you can have access to other services such as Google Drive and all the other additional services that they give, free. What you simply need is data to access them. Right, then the other advantage is you can also keep the same email address even if you change your ISP. So if you are using Gmail, the moment you change your ISP, you can also keep it. It doesn't get affected. One of the main disadvantages is that it will send adverts to your inbox to help cover their costs. That's where the catch is. So you are getting adverts here and then. Even if you do not like the adverts, they keep on sending them to you. If you have questions, remember, you can just add in. These are, when we look at the different parts of the email, we have two types. This one is for Gmail. Gmail, when you create a new message, and then this is an example of Outlook, which is part of Microsoft Office applications. And we move on to the different parts of the email. So the first one being the recipient's address. Where do you want to send the email to? That is the recipient. Number two, these are optional. CC and BCC, they are optional. CC, which is short for carbon copy. Now this one will let all the recipients see where the the email addresses of all the other recipients that we have added, that we have sent the message. Remember, an email can be sent to various recipients. So if you include the address on the CCs, then the other people will be able, recipients will be able to view to where the email was sent to. And then there are people who use that illegally because they end up taking all those recipients and end up sending them messages, of which is bad. And we are going to look at netiquettes, right, which are good and bad practices that you need to take into account when you are interacting electronically with other people. Right, then number three, we have BCC, which is blind carbon copy. Now, if you include the email addresses on this part, then the other recipients won't be able to see to whom the email has been sent to, right? So if you want to hide the recipients, the addresses, then you would better use BCC rather than CC, right? And then the fourth one, subject line, the title of the email, the subject, the heading. Now this is very, very important. It's used to gain attention so that when you see it, then you know, oh, okay, I need to look at this email. If you do not put anything on the subject, sometimes the email is automatically sent to the junk mail. So the recipient won't be able to see that email unless he or she tries to retrieve it from junk mail. So it's very, very important to include a subject. Right, then the last part is attachment, which is optional. You can decide to send an attachment or you can decide not to. It depends if the attachment is needed, right? Files that you want to share with the recipient. Remember, questions, if you have questions, let them come. And then how does the email works? There is central to all the communication that is taking place, there is the email server, which processes, stores, and receives email. So if we have 1, 2, 3, 4 users and they want to communicate, right? The user types in the email, the address, and then it goes to the server, and then the server determines to who the email is going to be sent. So if this is A, this is B, and this is C, and this is D. So if D sends the message to C, then the email server will say, okay, we'll redirect it to C. And there is communication between the user and the server. So there is a request when you send, and then if there is a reply, obviously now it's going to be a response, and then you get the email. So every email that is sent, it goes to a server, and then it's stored there until the recipient downloads it. And another thing, the email does not, for instance, if you are on a mobile device and you are connected through MTN, so it goes to the MTN servers, and then the MTN servers can direct it to the main server. If you are using Gmail, then it takes it to, maybe it's in the United States where the main server is. So it doesn't go direct from you to the email servers. It has to go through other servers. Same as, let's say you are seated with your friend and you decide to send an email to your friend. It's not going to be that easy, simple from your phone to the other. It has to go through MTN to the United States, and then it's redirected to your friend, even though you are separated with maybe distance of 1 meter. So the email has to travel all that, and in a split second. Right. Let's see how the whole process works. So we start with the sender composing a message. So the email, which has the address, and then it just checks from who it's being sent, and then we have the subject, and then you type in the email, and then what happens when you press the send button? There are different protocols that we will deal with, I'm sure, in grade 11, that handles how messages are sent over the internet, how they are sent and how they are received. So in this case, we are simply going to say, okay, it's sent through the SMTP, which is which is simple mail protocol transfer. We are going to discuss this one as we move on, right? And then it goes to the server, right? And then the server receives it. And on the server, let's say, for instance, this is Gmail, then it awaits the recipient to download it, right? So the message, if the recipient clicks download, in fact, the recipient will get a notification that there is a new email. And then if the recipient downloads it, then it's sent to the recipient's computer. Right, so the process in 4 steps. The person who writes the email types and then clicks send, and then it goes to the server. And then it stays on the server until the recipient clicks to download new emails. And then once it's done, the email is received, or we can say it's sent to the recipient, and then the recipient can open it, and then after that can always respond. Right. Then netiquettes, how to use the email and best practices. right? I've looked at netiquettes from different points, different definitions. And then this one, you will see it refers to online, it depends, refers to online code of what is appropriate and in good taste for internet users. So whatever you send, we have to think of the others. Then contraction of the words net from internet and etiquette from ethics, morals. Then poor choices can lead to bad consequences, right? So whatever you do there, you need to decide. If it's bad, then there are consequences, right? And always think of the other person before you send, right? Then the other one you will see there, I'm going to pick up the part that says it includes proper manners for sending email, conversation online, and so on. Proper manners, much like traditional etiquette, which provides rules of conduct in social situations. So this is to do with social behavior, right? And then lastly, there you will see a combination of net, just the same as this one. And then it means respecting other users' views and displaying common courtesy when posting your views online discussion groups. So it's not only for emails, even when you are chatting on WhatsApp, right? When you are on TikTok, when you are on Instagram, if you have Twitter, when you are on Twitter, think of the other person before you press the button. Right, so we are going to look at some of the netiquettes, and these ones, they are always evolving depending on how technology is evolving as well. So what you may have now might be different from the maybe what we'll see, like the netiquettes that we'll get next year. Right, so let's see. Number one, you need to show people on the internet the same respect you would show to them in real life, right? Number two, do not say things to people you would not say to them in real life. Just think, if the person is in front of you, will you be able to say that? Number three, do not post things on the internet that you would not want your mother or future boss to see. Remember, these days, if you apply, whatever you apply, be it a job, for a job, there are people there who are busy looking at whatever you have posted in your life. They might use that to formulate questions, and then they want to see how you answer. So people end up losing prospective, maybe jobs, because of whatever they've been doing. Now, there is no age limit. Even now in grade 10, you post something, there are footsteps all over the internet of what we have sent. Just remember, I said, if you send whatever you post from your phone right now, it goes to MTN. It's a server. It leaves footsteps there. It goes maybe other servers around the world. It goes to Europe. Remember the optic cables that we, fiber optics that we use, they connect us to Europe, and then from Europe to America. So in Europe also there are footsteps. Then it goes to states. So for you to be able to delete all that is going to be, I don't know, maybe you might even not be able to remove all the footsteps. So just be careful on what you post. Right, then number four, things posted on the internet often last forever, as I was explaining. This means that things you post as a teenager or young adult can negatively affect you the rest of your life. This is not a lie, it's true, the truth. Right? Number five, make sure your messages are clearly written and easy to understand. Clearly written and easy to understand. When joining an existing conversation, speak about subjects relevant to the topic. Do not bring other subjects. Try to make useful contributions and help people out of the internet, right? Then if you need help from the internet, do not expect other people to do all the work for you. Do as much work as you can before asking your question. And then we're almost done with the with the netiquettes, and then see if there are existing conversations about your topic before starting new conversations. And then lastly, do not spam people. Do not post the same advert repeatedly. But there are others, like for instance, if you are typing, do not use capital letters because it shows you are shouting, and also overuse of emojis. You need to limit that. Right, remember to post in the questions, and then we are almost coming to the end, and then we'll have a few questions to reflect. Right, then advantages of emails: provides a written record of communication, and then for future reference is there, and for a long time. You don't have to worry about keeping paper, right? And then inexpensive to send and receive. It's very, very inexpensive, and then can be sent from anywhere in the world and at any time, provided we have an internet connection. So what you simply need is data. And then it is environmentally friendly, and then alternative to sending regular email, especially maybe we can say in this time when we are having problems with deforestation, and also now with the COVID, it's an advantage if we use email, because there is nothing that we are exchanging through hands. It's electronic, right? And also we maintain social distancing, right? Can be typed and temporarily stored and sent at a later stage. That's one of the good advantages as well. You can type it and then send it later, right? Then disadvantages: email attachments can be used to spread viruses. Serious disadvantage. It can be used to spread viruses. And then spam, which is short for electronic junk mail, like we can have advertising, is a big problem. And then over time, many institutions will require your email address and start sending adverts to you via email. So that brings me to, when you get, maybe these are offers that you get online, and then you fill in your details, you put in your phone number, you put in your email address, it means you are going to receive unsolicited messages through the phone and through the email. And if you are using an ISP-based email address account, then it means it's going to take up your inbox space, right? So you need to minimize the forms that you fill online unless they are imported. So do not just fill in anything. And then we look at a few questions, and then we are done for the day. So remember, if you have any questions, you need to put them down. And for tomorrow as well, we are going to look at social implications. I would be very, very happy if you post in some questions to do with maybe the social behavior regarding electronic communications in general. Right, so this part, let's see, we match up. This is based on activity 6.2 on page 124 from the free ebook. Right, so 6.1.1 says match, okay, column A and B. Now, what I would require you to do is, as usual, just to put the letter of the correct answer in the chat. So where you enter the topic of the email, what is it called? D, let's see, subject, perfect. Anyone else who supports D? That's Israel, that's correct. Ontatila is correct. Is there anyone else who thinks it's the same? Or there is someone who thinks otherwise? So we have 2 Ds, what else? 3 Ds, so that's okay. So there's no other option there, that's correct. And then email address of somebody you would like to include in the email. Now there's the part, you need to read the questions very, very clearly, right? It says without the knowledge of the other person. That's where the catch is. So you're saying it's G, let's see, B, C, C. Okay, B and G, let's see, B, oh, there's a mistake there, there's an, okay. Yeah, I think there is a typing error. We'll see which answer is missing. So B and G, it's fine. there is a repetition. There is another one that I think I mistyped. Okay, we'll see. Let's see. Then good manners when communicating on the internet. Good manners when communicating, that's A. That's A, which is netiquettes, right? Netiquettes, that's correct. And example, okay, so, okay. Windows application used as an email client software, Windows. That's F, which is Outlook, perfect, that's correct. And then example of web email, that's Untatile says it's C. Anyone who disagrees, why is it F? F doesn't get in, okay, so it's C, it's fine, okay, C, right? And this one lets all recipients see the email addresses of everyone the email was sent to. Everyone can see. What is it? That's E, which is carbon copy. Yeah, Untatile Israel, you are correct, right? And then lastly, the identities of the other, okay, it's repeated, will be shown. So that was where the repetition is, right? So this is the same as E, which is CC, right? Then the last one, last question, we have an example of an email. And then the question, the first one, we are done. And then number 2, we are done with it. Let's just see the last one, which is email is e-communications, and e-communication tool that allows you to send text messages and then give other 3 uses of emails. What are the 3 uses that you can think of? Just type in 1-word, 2-word answers. That's perfectly well. Let's say uses of email. You have used email before. What were you using it for? Sending messages, what type of messages, right? Maybe we can say communication between friends, family. Okay, good. Between businesses, right? For applications, you can also use, maybe could be you applying for something, right? For marketing, we spoke of marketing earlier. If there are any questions, as I said earlier, just jot them down and then you will address them tomorrow. Right, that brings us to the end of the lesson, and we just look at what we've learned today, which is defining what email is, and we looked at the different components of the email address, where we discussed on the local part, which is the username, and then the domain, and then advantages and disadvantages of emails. And then we looked also the most important part at the netiquettes, the best practices. And I would be very, very happy if whenever you communicate on the internet, you practice these netiquettes. So, and then tomorrow we are looking at the social implications. Like I said also earlier, you need to come up with questions that you might want to ask, whatever you need to know as far as the best practices on the internet are. And then for your resources, you are free to look at the free ebook and also study opportunities. IT is great. Enjoy the rest of the day, and we meet again tomorrow.